Hello and welcome to another Spectrum Geeks video. My name is Dale and this is an update in terms of my private pilot license training series. Back at the end of April, so this video is a bit overdue, I finally passed my navigation ground school exam. I got 91% on the exam. So in this video I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my experience, thoughts on the exam and kind of how I went about studying and passing the ground school navigation exam with the CAA. So as mentioned there in the intro, I passed the navigation ground school exam with 91%, which meant I got one question wrong. I think it's 70 or 75% that you have to get. And the area that I got wrong relates to 061.01.04.03. You can look these things up on the CAA website. Basically, it's related to a question with regards to magnetic poles, isignals, relationship between true and magnetic. So there was a question that, like a lot of these questions on the CAA exams, is oddly worded, and I obviously clearly selected the wrong answer. Apologies for the dog snoring in the background, by the way. But yeah, so the navigation exam actually was the hardest exam out of all the ones I've done so far. I think for a couple of reasons. One is definitely my mentality. I'm just going to get my notes so I can explain to you what it's all about. So the first thing that's quite interesting about the nav exam, obviously it relates to navigation, but you don't use one of these at all. There's no use of a map in the navigation exam, which I thought was kind of interesting. So you don't have to take a map in there. I'm actually currently studying for the flight performance and planning exam, and you do take a map into that one, I think. Well, definitely there's questions that need a map, so I'm assuming so. So for navigation, you just have to be really good on your whiz wheel. I think you can also take one of those digital flight computers in as well, but my experience is with the whiz wheel, so just stuck with that. And you've got various, obviously, questions related to it. So the other key thing is to know a lot of the formulas in terms of how you come up with certain calculations and then how you can do all the conversions on the whiz wheel. The whiz wheel is an amazing thing, but I'll put a link in the description if I can remember to a tutorial on how to use a whiz wheel that I found really helpful. But the whiz wheel can do like 100 things. It's trying to remember how to configure things to do one of the 100 things that it can do when you want it to do it. So it is quite tricky. So yeah, so I've got basically 3 double sides of my kind of notes that I made when going through the navigation exam. So I guess I will just mention, I'll go through them like I have done before in case it helps, of kind of the key areas that kept on coming up that I struggled with, that, you know, these are the notes that really help me kind of pull things together. So first one is there's lots of questions around GPS and how that works and how things communicate. So apologies for the dog snoring away. So you've got questions about RAIM, so RAIM. This result is the acronym for Receiver Autonomous Integrity Monitoring, basically all related to the GPS. So RAIM fault detection and exclusion mode needs 6 satellites. RAIM detection with fault mode requires 5 satellites, and you need at least 4 for it to obviously work with positioning, that kind of thing. You also need to know about obviously the Earth's structure and how the longitude and latitude works. So lines join in place of equal mag variation, and they are the isogonal lines. When you think about VORs work in between 30 and 300 megahertz VHF, and VOR is positional and provides a magnetic bearing. And the VOR navigation aid measures phase differences between 2 signals and gives you a magnetic bearing to something, not from something. When you see like a box with like a diamond in and a dot, that is the VOR and DME, and again that is measuring the slant range plus the magnetic bearing from the ground station. A longitude of a point is a shorter angular distance from east to west. So that's another thing. To calculate the heading, the required heading and the ground speed, you need true airspeed, track and wind velocity. Magnetic heading is a true heading plus a variable ignore any deviations. Magnetic compass is least accurate at the magnetic poles. True heading is a plus or minus variation equals the magnetic heading, and the magnetic heading plus or minus the deviation is the compass heading. Meridians of longitude on a Lambert CTP equals straight lines on the pole. I apologize, I know I'm just dumping stuff here, but these are things that were helpful to me. When you're trying to work out true headings and variations, there is a little kind of acronym TVMDC. So true heading is plus or minus the variation, that equals the magnetic heading, and then plus or minus the deviation equals the compass heading, as we kind of covered already. But if you put that in like a little table, it helps you work out some of these things. The other thing I didn't mention, previous exams I've used the Pouliers books and Easy PPL. I only used the Easy PPL study for this particular exam. And again, positive because I passed, but just decided I wouldn't go through the book with this one. When you're looking at the maps and things, typically it's a 1 to 500,000 chart equals 1 centimetre, which equals 500,000 centimetres on Earth. Geographic North Pole is true north. GNSS satellites transmit on UHF, not VHF. I think sometimes there's confusion on that. Meridian longitude is half of a great circle that joins true north and true south. QDM of an NDB equals magnetic heading plus relative bearing. 1 degree angular measurement is 60 mins, i.e. 180 degrees times 60 equals 10,800 minutes. So these are things, again, all these different formulas and stuff you try and get your head around when looking at longitude and latitude kind of measurements. When you're looking at some of the distances on the maps, so the MEF figure is the known obstacles above mean sea level or terrain of 1,000 plus average MSL rounded up to 100 foot. So that's when you're trying to plan your minimum safe distances, how you can calculate the height there. When you are directly overhead a ground station, so the DME will show you only the height above, not necessarily speeds. Also, when you're off track, when you're actually flying, when you're going off track, you kind of use a rule of thumb and kind of just guess that your thumb is 5 nautical miles or whatever. When you're learning this for the exam, you have to look at the distance off track in nautical miles and divide that by the distance gone in nautical miles and times that by 60. So that's one sum you do separately. And then in addition to that, you do the distance off track divided by the distance of go you got to go, times that by 60 and add the two together, and that will give you the correction angle and time that you need to get back on track. So that's another one that you've got to get straight in your head. Where are we? HPA on a pressure setting equals 27 feet change in altitude. The difference between track and heading is drift. SSR traffic only equals C operation of the transponder. So you want to make sure your transponder is working. Magnetic latitude equals horizontal component increase and the dip angle decrease. GNS in the aircraft does not transmit. The satellite transmits. The receiver is obviously only receiving, so that can often be a slip up with the wording. The Earth rotates vertically down at the north in an anti-clockwise fashion. So the sun would set later in the west than the east. A RUM line, or a RUM line, RHUMB, is the regular curve line that cuts across all meridians of longitude at the same angle. So that's another one back to the longitude and latitude. Magnetic force vector is a point of surface resolved around a horizontal component and the angle between the two of them. Magnetic variation can be found on any chart. You're looking for the blue dashed lines that go from top to bottom. Right now here where I'm in the UK, we don't have to worry about that too much because the variation is hardly anything, but obviously that's continually moving, so each year when you get your new charts, you need to make note of that. Relative bearing is always clockwise, and GNSS always follows a great circle. And then you also need to be familiar with DME, civil airports, civil limited airports, training facilities, VORs, and what flashing lights and GVS means on the map. So kind of keep an eye out for those and understand what the differences are so you can identify that. Is there anything else on this one? A relative bearing is the needle from the nose of the aircraft. I struggled a bit with these, when you're trying to work out what the needles are telling you where you are and where you're from based on whether it's a ground station or whatever. Sometimes get confusing in terms of relative bearings. So correct left and right CDR equals the radial CDR OBS in the top half of the CDI. These things probably don't make any sense as you just listen to. If you're studying for it, this will hopefully some of this stuff makes sense. QTE direction from the DF station is a true bearing on VDF. SBAS is a generic name for additional accuracy. Variation is the difference between true north and magnetic magnetic north. Standard pressure setting, if you're not familiar already, is 1013 hectopascals, and remember 27 foot per hectopascal. In order for a pilot to calculate the heading that they want to go on, they need wind velocity, track, and true airspeed. And then, again, with the whiz wheel, you need to work out how to do original tracks, crosswind limits, what wind vectors are, RBIs being to target beacon reference to the nose, and OBS selections and those kind of things. So a little bit of dump, probably not that helpful, but I really found the navigation one quite a struggle to study up on. It took me 2 months instead of 1 month study period that I've allocated myself, and I'm just glad it's out of the way. Most of the time, obviously, it's really important to use this stuff. I'm still obviously using these plannings for my solo trips, but obviously in the future you can use things like SkyDemon to verify and validate what you're doing. If you've not used SkyDemon before, definitely check that out. So you can't use these on your tests or any exams, but it's probably how you're going to fly in the future. As mentioned, I'm now doing the flight performance and planning. I'm 1 month behind with that one as well. There are a lot of crossovers from NAVs and some of the other exams in the flight performance and planning, so there's lots of formulas and stuff that you've got to remember, which is the bits I struggle with. And also due to lots of flights being cancelled and stuff, I kind of lost a bit of motivation with the ground study. But by the end of June, I think it's second week of July, I think is my plan to be done with the flight performance and planning exam and get that done. And then I've only got 2 left at the ground school exams to get done. So don't know if this video helps, probably just a dump of stuff, but I thought I'd get it out there, and again, later than expected. But thanks very much for watching. If this video's been helpful, please like, provide any comments, feedback down below. Again, just a memory kind of brain dump of stuff, and best luck if you're doing the navigation exam, because like I said, I struggled with it just a little bit. Take care until the next video. Goodbye for now.